Hello, and welcome to Health and Fitness Redefined. I'm your host, Anthony Amen. Join me today as we take a dive into the world of health and fitness, where we learn how to overcome adversity to pick fact versus fiction and see health and fitness in a whole new light. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. We were diving in all about diet, all about the microbes, and it was very intriguing to learn from somebody who was saying, eat this, not that. Well, guys, today we're going to bring in a very special guest. Today's guest, his name is Chuck Rose, and we're going to dive into all about diets again, get a whole new approach, and hopefully get you going. So without further ado, guys, I'd like to welcome to the show Chuck Rose, author of Customize Yourself. Nutrition you learned from, how old is your mother now, Chuck?
My mother just turned 111 yesterday.
111 years old.
The title of the book, the subtitle, it's Customize Yourself, Nutrition, and What I Learned from My 110-Year-Old Mother. And I wrote it when she was 110, but yesterday she just turned 111, but I'm not going to change the title.
Well, happy birthday to her and welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you on. Talk about a lot. I mean, we got a lot to cover. So
absolutely.
Without
I want to say I love your show. There's like hundreds of health and fitness podcasts out, and there's not that many really good ones. I love your show. I love your podcast. I've listened to it. I'm a fan. I just want to let your audience know that before we go.
I appreciate that a lot, actually. Thank you so much. And I hope others take from it, learn from it, and we can start making people healthy, because that's literally the point of this show.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So let's talk a little bit about you. Take us back to, why did you write a book? What got you into this field? Your show, man.
I'll tell you, it goes way back. I mean, I've been interested in this, my whole life. And I have been, I learned about nutrition, like just gradually, step by step by step. I was an overweight kid who ate too much garbage. I'm now a lean, athletic adult with 8% body fat who has a very good diet. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it's pretty close. And I, just step by step learned it. And part of that process, right before the pandemic, I thought, well, how do I further my education? How do I get better at it? I think I have a system that works pretty good. I bet you there's a bunch of books that are way better than what I'm doing, and I can really improve on it. So I went to the giant Barnes and Noble bookstore in my county, Monmouth County, New Jersey, and they had about 500 books in the health-related section. And I love books. I said, all right, I'm going to come back here until I can figure out which 100 books are the best books, and I'm going to read or skim those 100 books, and I will get better educated, which I did. It took me 20 visits to that store. I read or skimmed what I perceived to be the top 100 books, and I probably got like 80, 90% correct. And I was appalled because, first of all, out of those 100 books, 90 of them weren't even worth reading. They were all really completely written to promote products or services, and they were poorly written, and they had a lot of misinformation. I was just appalled. Some of them bestsellers. Maybe there was 10 books I could recommend out of that whole bunch, and none of them articulated the very simple approach I have in Customize Yourself. Customize Yourself is just based on doing a very gradual improvement of your diet. It's really simple. It's really basic. And I've just done it all my life. So I realized, since none of these books articulate this very simple, successful thing, I would just do it. But I would research it thoroughly. I read over 3,000 books and articles and studies, and I have footnoted it heavily. So everything I say, don't take my word for it. Here's the study. There's 295 footnotes in the book. It's not even a long book, but I don't want any MD or PhD. And then I gave it to a bunch of MDs and PhDs, and I said, okay, take this apart. And every one of them said, it's fine. You got it. These are all the best studies. In fact, several of them said, I was relying on a study that was older than the study you quote in here, and now I'm more up to date. So I'm very confident that it's very solid. And if any reader wants to say, hey, this is wrong or whatever, let me know. You can send me an email and I'll fix it. So I just want to get it right. That's my only interest.
I love that you took, first of all, the time and effort to check the market. Then you took the time and effort to really look into studies, because for those that may or may not know, diet changes our health recommendations about every second in this country. There's different studies coming out that go against the popular one that was XYZ. We've talked about a bunch of times on the show in the 70s how they were promoting that sugar's really good for you and that it was fat that was causing the obesity epidemic. Lo and behold, study was sponsored by Coca-Cola, and then the USDA had to then change their study over to maybe, hey, it's sugar, not fat. But it changes, is my point. All the time.
I learned that too. I would say when I went into this, I thought, well, this is 100% correct. I found out I was about 90% correct, but I found some startling things. I was going to write a whole thing on cytotoxic testing about being allergic to things, because in the 70s it was a thing, and there was studies, and there was what I didn't realize in the 90s, they disproved all that. I missed that, So, but I learned it, and then so there's nothing about cytotoxic testing in my book because it's been, and I've been kind of running my life on that, but it doesn't work. So I learned that. So I love reading and I love learning, and every new study that comes out. I mean, there was, I just read, now the book's been published. I just read a thing that I should have put in the book, but I didn't know it. Let me ask you this. What percentage do you think the average American, what percentage of their diet is sugar?
Percentage of
their entire diet.
calories.
Give me a number. Take a guess if you don't know.
Average American, I'm going about 60%.
How much?
60?
60% sugar?
The people
really?
I hang out with, yeah.
It was. I'll tell you the number. The number is 16% sugar. I would have said 5% or 10%. It's 16% sugar. I was appalled by that. It's so easy to cut down to 8% or 4%, and you won't even notice it if you do it in steps, But sugar is so bad, and we know it, and it's like literally. I have a couple of chapters in my book comparing sugar to cocaine, which I find really, there's a lot of similarities pharmacologically, and not that anybody should do cocaine, but like if you think cocaine is a bad thing to do, you should also think sugar is, got its problems. But the point is, I'm appalled at how much sugar people on average do consume, and it really is easy to reduce that. And again, a lot of dieters would say, oh, you got to eliminate it. Well, no, that's too hard. You're going to freak people out. They're going to go back to their donuts and cookies, and you lose. But if you could just cut them down like two cookies a week, you've accomplished something, and they'll be, healthier and they'll function better.
I love that approach because that's how I teach my clients. It's not, hey, eat this. It's, okay, let's take what you normally eat. I don't even recommend diet at all for the first week or two. Mm-hmm. I just have them start writing down what they do eat so I can have an understanding of the foods they like. Then we take their foods they like and everything they're eating in a normal day, and we say, all right, let's just hypothetically say they're drinking 4 cans of soda. I'm like, all right, next week you're going to drink 3. And then we do that
exactly what I'm talking. We are on the same page, Anthony. Exactly the same page. If you just that's the customize yourself approach right there. You reduce it 25%. I go a little bit further. If you're drinking 4 cans of soda a week, I say just take 1 out. Now you're done a 25% reduction. But do something else on your calendar, whether it's on your wall or on your wrist or on your laptop or on your tablet or your phone. On your calendar, 6 months from that date, write 25% less soda. And when 6 months from now, when you reach that date, you do 2 things. You throw a party for yourself. You celebrate. Just think about those. That's 6 months, 180 cans of soda that you didn't consume. Just visualize 180 cans of soda on the floor there. That's not on your gut. That's not on your thighs. That's not on your butt. That's 180 cans of soda. I mean, that you celebrate. And then put on your calendar for 6 months hence, 25% less soda, or just optional. If you want, you don't have to do it. You can put 50% less soda, maybe knock it down another can. In that way, you can reduce and eliminate soda over time. But if you say to somebody, as most dieters will, that's it, no soda for you. You'll be back on soda within a few weeks or a few months, and you failed, and it's not your fault.
Exactly why diets don't work. And I think this is a good transition point because they say you have to eat A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you're super restricted, and then you do it for like a month, and your body changes because it's like, oh my God, what's going on with my diet? It's just the metabolic effect from it. So then you start losing some weight, and then after a while, you're like, oh my God, I really missed this. And then you overconsume back to everything else, and you just destroyed your metabolism. So now you're burning at a lower metabolic rate and consuming more calories, therefore gaining more weight.
Not only do the people pushing these diets who make money off them or whatever they make off them, don't tell you that. They probably don't know that. And they also don't explain or don't know that there's a very natural process going on in parts of your brain you're unaware of. Now, consciously, you're like, wow, I know I have a bad diet. This guy has a good diet. I'll do the good diet. I'll lose weight. That's the conscious process. That's explained. Everybody gets that. What's not explained is in the subconscious and unconscious parts of your brain and in the involuntary functions of your body, everything's going haywire. Everything's going, hey, this is different. Whoa, this feels, what, is this wrong? Is this right? What's going on here? And you have this voice in your subconscious or unconscious, not in your conscious, screaming at your conscious, I hate this. This is wrong, and you're mostly unaware of this until you get to that point, as you described, like, gee, I really do hate this. It finally gets through. I hate this. And that's why you stop. Even if you're convinced it's a good thing, even if you love being 10 pounds lighter, all those things, you are overwhelmed with this. I hate this. And you go off it. It's just human nature. And if you look at the studies on diets, you will see this happens about 95% of the time in every study.
And you referenced pre-show, which I kind of want you to talk about. They did a rating based upon best diets to worst diets. Do you mind glancing on that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I cover this briefly in the book because I just thought everybody knows this. But if you don't know it, every year, U.S. News and World Report does the most comprehensive annual study of diets that I know of. And I've looked all over the world, and I spent years looking. This one is the best. I think they publish it every January. What they do is they bring together a group of eminent professors from the best universities in America, and they say, here, these are the top 35 diets according to popularity. Take these 35 diets and analyze each one. Give it a point score for safety. Give it a point score for efficacy. All these things. And then we'll give it a final point score from 1 to 5, and we'll rate them from number 1 to number 35. Every year I've looked at this study, the number 1 diet is the Mediterranean diet. So as much as I'm anti-diet and I can explain to you why diets don't work, if you're hell-bent on doing a diet, do that one. That really is the best diet, Mediterranean diet. But the other thing that I found really interesting in the last 3 or 4 years, number 29 through number 35, the bottom of the list, the worst diets with the lowest point scores. The keto diet and the paleo diet have never risen higher than number 29. And I think in the most recent study, one of them is number 35, dead last. And keto and paleo are two of the most popular diets. They have always ranked between number 29 and 35 out of 35, not out of 100, out of 35. They've ranked between number 29 and 35. So if you are a paleo or keto fan, you can search U.S. News and World Report diet study. It'll pop right up on your Google page and read it. It's free. It's online. And just read about these 35 diets. You don't have to take my word for it. And that is, I think, amazing considering how popular those two diets are.
I mean, we talked about keto for almost 2 hours on our keto diet debate, which you guys should definitely check out because you will hear both ends of the good, the bad, the ugly, all about keto and how it has helped. Paleo is definitely something you do want to do in the future, but I think this study is a great reference point from what you're talking about. And your approach where you're taking that, all right, just slight reduction off of this, slight reduction off of that, I think really goes a long way because it's not really a diet, it's more lifestyle change. And that's what most things are about. They're about creating habits, creating a lifestyle change of things you can do for the rest of your life. Not something that's
absolutely. That's what diets don't do, because again, if you're one of the 95% of people, and all the studies go off diets, if you're one of those 5% super disciplined people who can stay on the diet, well, good for you. But it doesn't even mean it's good for you. It just means you're one of those 5% super disciplined people. Like maybe you or I could do it because we're stubborn or we're disciplined. It doesn't mean it's a good thing, And just getting back to your, example, the 4 cans of soda, that is the perfect example. I love that. And you go long, like I used to drink 1 can of soda every day until I think I was in my 30s. And it's just like, it's not that bad. I like it. I have it with dinner. It's just 1 can until I started really getting into what that was, a can of acid and sugar, period. That acid is just way too hard on my gut and that sugar's not good for me. What if I switched to water? Wouldn't that be amazing? I haven't had a can of soda in, decades. I mean, I can live without it, but you have to go through that process. I was having 7 cans of soda per week. Now I'm having 0. I'm much healthier for it. that all that waste, that sugar that, is just making my organs, like freak out and stress and, from, brain to ass. I mean, everything has its sugar issue. I mean, it's the difference between the reason sugar is so popular is because it sells food products. People who make food products know that if they put sugar in it, they sell more food products. If I may digress just a little bit, as part of my study, I went into one of the biggest supermarkets in New Jersey, which shall remain nameless because I hope to get the CEO to change this whole layout of his market. They have a giant natural food section, which 5 years ago didn't exist, which I've been so happy that they have this big natural food. It's like organic, natural. It's like 2 aisles or 3 aisles. It's really great. I looked at, I mean, there's a lot of issues with cereal and, flour, and you really should cut down on that. But if you, and again, customize yourself, gradual, reduce it. But, you want a bowl of cereal, you go to the natural foods aisle. I read every package, every box of cereal in that aisle, every single box, just like in Barnes and Noble, I read 100 books. The lowest amount of sugar in any one of those boxes was 6%. There was not a single box of cereal or package of cereal that had less than 6% sugar. And if you go over to the other aisle with the Cheerios and the cornflakes, I found a box of cornflakes over there with only 2% sugar. But in this natural food section, they did not sell anything with under 6%. And I don't think it's the fault of the supermarket. The producers of these products, these food products, know they sell more product if they put more sugar in it. A lot of them had 8 and 10% sugar. Most of them had 8 to 10% sugar. These natural food, organic, granola, healthy, overpriced.
I'm gonna jump in on this because this is something, it irks me. My blood is boiling just kind of hearing you talk about it right now. A part of a transformation challenge I go grocery shopping with 2 of my clients.
Oh, I love it. I want to go with you. I'll do one.
It is mind-boggling that they never, and you mentioned this in your book, they never look at labels. And I'm showing them, this is natural. Our big supermarket here, they have very certain aisles that say this stuff is natural and healthy. And you go and you turn the labels. You're looking at cereals, 14 grams of extra sugar. Some have 20. And I'm just sitting there like, what the heck about this is healthy? Maybe their marketer is just saying it's healthy because they know people lean towards it. So then they play to the naiveness of people that just assume just because it's healthy means it's good for you. And they're going to go grab these products that are just horrible and are worse than some overly processed foods.
Absolutely. They're worse. And let me tell you, you probably do this on your trips to the market, but do things like look at, they'll say pure cane sugar. It's still sugar. Or they'll say brown rice syrup. It's still sugar. They had come up with there's maltodextrin, dextrose, fructose, every possible thing. It's sugar. It's all sugar. Just look at the one line that says total sugars. Don't even read the rest of it. And then the other tip I'd give I find a lot of people when I say, just read the label, they're like, oh, I don't have time to read a label. I'm busy. I'm not going to go in there and read 100 labels. Are you crazy? I don't do that. Just read one label when you go in there, and don't read the label. Just read the black and white box that has the percentages. Just read that part of the label. That takes 5 seconds. Don't read the whole thing about how it's healthy, how, their uncle lived to be, 200 years old eating this product, or the pretty pictures or the script or the natural or the location. Just that one line takes you 5 seconds. Make it even quicker. Then you could read 5 things instead of, 1.
I got to say, grocery shopping is a nightmare when I go because I read every label.
Yeah, me too. But you only have to read it once. You don't have to go back every week and read the same label,
You're going around, and I don't buy a lot of food because I'm not buying garbage. And
right.
I see people shopping carts that are filled to the brim, and mine has 7 items in it because I'm sitting there reading labels. I'm like, wow, only 3%. I'm just picking an arbitrary number, by the way.
Right.
But 3% of stuff in this grocery store is actually good for you, where the other 97% is just not even worth looking at.
To put a moniker on it, and I probably mentioned it somewhere in the book, there's 2 things in a store. There's food and there's food products. Just like you said, it's 3% food and 97% food products. See if you can buy all food. Try it, or at least mostly food. And just don't buy food. Anything that has a label on it is a food product. Anything that has more than one ingredient is a food product. See if you can stick with food.
Really good point. And I'm probably gonna get in legal trouble for mentioning this, but tropical smoothie is my perfect example. And I only bring this up because really big pet peeve, and a lot of people can relate to their menu.
Mm-hmm.
You go into and try to buy a smoothie. You're looking at, now they have the amount of calories in each smoothie. You'll see most smoothies range from anywhere between 400 and 600 calories per smoothie. They don't show you any other information. Then you look at their Detox Island Green. That one has about 160 to 180 calories in it, as opposed to their typical Island Green, that's not the detox version, that has about 400 calories. So you have a difference of
I'll bet it's mostly sugar.
calories.
I'll bet it's mostly sugar.
And actually, they call it turbinado, which is their healthy alternative. I'm doing quotations for those that are not watching video of sugar. So that means they're putting in, because it's the same ingredients, 300 extra calories of pure sugar. Blows my mind. So when I go in, you can still get a smoothie from Tropical Smoothie. I go in and say no sugar, no turbinado. What's turbinado? I don't want any. And then all of a sudden, that 400 calorie smoothie has dropped down to like 160.
You know, when I talk to people about smoothies, and I'm not a smoothie freak for many reasons, I say just skip the smoothies. You'll be like people who can't lose weight, but they do the smoothies because somebody in the gym tells them to drink smoothies. You know, this is better for you.
I'm a smoothie connoisseur.
They happen to be selling the smoothies there, so that's just a slight reason why they might tell you to drink smoothies. I think it's because, but again, like you say, if you do it right, if you do the right smoothie, it's fine. But so many of them are wrong. I mean, you know, the ingredients. The other thing is, I'm really against juices in general. Eat the whole fruit. There's a reason why it's whole fruit. It doesn't come juice out of a tap out of, you know, like maple syrup. You need the pulp. You need everything that's in there. It all works together. If you separate it, that you have a very high sugar, very high acid drink, which is going to be, it's going to get absorbed too fast. You need that pulp for a lot of reasons, and just eat the whole fruit. I mean, that's a really simple thing.
This drives into an episode I did by myself all about fiber. And this is this exact example I used. You take a juice, you juice it, and you say, this is 100% organic. I juiced this orange I pulled off this tree, and then I put an orange next to it. This juice is still going to cause a blood sugar spike. This orange will not. Fiber.
The other thing it'll do is it'll cause the next bestsellers you're going to see in 2022 are books written by MDs about acid in your gut. This is a subject which I talk about in my book, which I discovered. This is the first thing I discovered about nutrition. When I was a kid, and I describe it in the book, every day we'd have a glass of orange juice. My mother would give us a glass of orange juice. Once in a while, it'd be fresh squeezed orange, but usually it was the frozen stuff or out of the Tropicana, whatever it was. Every day, 7 days a week, everybody in my family, brother, sister, mother, father, glass of orange juice. And every day I'd go to school and I'd have a stomach ache. And I thought, well, school is stressful. Kindergarten's rough. Maybe it'll go away in first grade. In fourth grade, I was like, well, this fourth grade class is getting really difficult. Maybe, you know, like that stomach. But the stomach ache would go away by the afternoon. I thought, well, this is what school does. But what I couldn't figure out is, why do I still get the stomach ache every morning in the summer? I'm not in school. It took me until I was like 19 or 20 years old when I thought, wait a minute. All this acid in this orange juice is not being absorbed by the pulp. What if I didn't drink a glass of orange juice? No stomach ache. I haven't had a glass of orange juice since then, but I eat an orange every day. I have a clementine or an orange every day. No problems. I don't have that acid explosion rip in my stomach.
I got to say, after reading that section, I'm just like I related so personally to it, because and you were talking about the naiveness of when you're younger and you're just doing what your parents tell you to do.
Exactly.
And you just don't understand why you have a stomach issue and you don't put two to two together. I didn't realize till the 7th grade that I was super lactose intolerant, where I would go, my parents were just like, have a bowl of cereal with milk. It's
you
just
had to figure it out.
How they were.
You figured it out, right?
I would go home every day in elementary school because I had stomach issues and I had like runs. It was horrible. And everyone just assumed I was making it up in my head, that it wasn't realistic, because my mom would say, you'd call about a tummy ache, you then come home, and then about a half an hour later, you'd start feeling better. So we started just not stop believing you. The nurse didn't believe me. My parents didn't believe me. And in 7th grade, we're learning about lactose intolerance at health class. And I'm like, let me try not having milk. Guess what? No stomach ache.
You ever sit around in elementary school or junior high school and some kid in the class farts and the whole class breaks up? It's the most hysterical thing in the world. And the teacher is like, I'm going to send you the principal for farting because you disrupted my class. Probably the kid was lactose intolerant or something like that. That's, it was considered humor or class disruption in those days, not a medical issue, but easily solved. Change the milk thing. It's simple. It's not rocket science. It's really simple, but you had to figure that out.
No doctor, no one told me,
No
hey,
one.
look, listen, hey, if you just stop eating. My dad didn't even mention that he's lactose intolerant.
Ugh.
He didn't tell me till I was like 30. Oh, by the way, I'm lactose intolerant. Explains why you have it. Like, oh, thank you. Oh, we should have figured out. Oh, we're Sicilians. Sicilians didn't grow up on cow milk. You're only the Northern European genetics really can process dairy. So if you're not from that area, you're most likely lactose intolerant, which explains the high numbers.
But let's refine it a little more. Even if you're not lactose intolerant, milk is arguably good for children. Maybe not too much. But when you're an adult, you should not be drinking lots of milk. I mean, maybe a little in your coffee or something like that, but you shouldn't be drinking glasses of milk or dumping loads of milk in your cereal. It's arguable. I don't think it's generally good for kids, but it may not harm all kids. But any adult should not be drinking large amounts of milk. I mean, cow milk is designed for one thing and one thing only. It's designed for calves. It's really not even made for humans. It's made for small cows. And so we're adopting that to our diet. And we're just assuming that, well, if as a kid, you can, benefit from the protein in milk. It basically, it was cheap protein that the dairy industry could push on us really hard when we were young. And the other thing, and the reason it's so big now also, is because the dairy industry has been able to place their executives and their lobbyists within the Department of Agriculture to keep it on the food chain. So it's like, hey, everybody consume a lot of dairy. I don't think you should consume a lot of dairy. Nobody should.
I want to mention a point you brought up in your book, actually, which references cows, and something that I've known about, but a lot of people know nothing about. You want to solve climate change, people? Stop eating cows.
Absolutely.
Supply and demand. Why cows? Well, what you're not realizing is the methane gas they release from their behind after consuming the amount of grass they're eating is actually it's the highest percentage of methane in our atmosphere. And the reason global warming is happening so fast, not all of it, but majority, they're saying it's about 50%, is from cows farting.
Well, actually, the studies I've read put it at about 15%. But let me add to this, and I think I mentioned it in the book, what's just as bad, I mean, that's 15%, and tailpipe emissions is only like 20%. I mean, it's almost as bad as tailpipe emissions. But what makes it worse even perhaps than tailpipe emissions is in Central America and in South America, they're plowing millions of acres of trees and forest and natural habitat to make fields to grow grain to feed cows. And that raping of the trees we need to produce oxygen on this planet is part of the meat industry.
Yeah. Maybe they took the meat industry as a whole. Maybe that's what I was looking at for the higher number.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, for those who are politically aware, I know it's dangerous to talk politics now. There actually is a bill in the Senate that the senator from my state, Cory Booker, introduced that would ban factory meat by 2040. I don't think it has a chance in hell because there's so many senators from factory meat states. But the point is, if we could ban factory meat by 2040, that might save the planet as much as electric cars.
Yeah, there's opportunity in it. And I think that the biggest thing that we could help ourselves as society, because I mean, cardiovascular disease, we talked about this 100 times, is the number one killer. So you want to help cardiovascular disease, you want to help the planet. I think the biggest thing is everything runs on supply and demand. Thank you for having the world we live in. No one's telling us what to eat. We're eating what we want. So you stop eating enough cow meat, you're going to help your cardiovascular system because you're not getting that super amount of LDLs, the higher saturated fat content you're going to find in cow meat. And now there's less supply, there's less demand for cows. So what's going to happen? They're going to have less supply. And then everything else is going to trickle out that way. So
Just
really,
go more, keep it simple, just get more plant-based. I mean, I haven't had meat in 30 years. And when I was a kid, I ate meat twice a day. I screamed for meat. If I only had meat once a day, my head would explode. I had to have meat twice a day. I haven't had meat in 30 years. I don't miss it. I'm not saying everybody should quit meat. I think it'd be fine if they did. Just cut down. And grass-fed organic beef, not factory meat. Factory meat is full of, besides killing the planet, it's full of hormones, it's full of steroids, it's full of antibiotics. You're eating hormones, steroids, and antibiotics every time you eat a hamburger or steak, everywhere except for organic meat locations, which are small. So how much of that can you consume along with bad cholesterol and sugar and not wind up with cardiovascular problems? It's impossible almost. I mean, it's like you got to be some kind of unique, freakish, organism to handle that. I don't know how you do it. Maybe, we'll evolve into that. The other thing, I don't want to like load your audience with statistics, but if you're interested, before the pandemic, the CDC found that the obesity rate in America was 42%. The overweight rate was 72%. The New England Journal of Medicine just came out with a study a couple of months ago that predicts in 2030, 29 states in America will have obesity rates over 50%. That means overweight somewhere between 80 and 90%. Your gym is going to be packed with customers and by 2030. That's all I can tell you. It'd be good for your business.
No, I'd rather people start taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
I think the biggest prenom, which I've talked about a lot, there's two sides to this, and I think this can appeal to everybody, regardless of where you're from. One side is you can live longer, you can help save the planet. There's a bunch of different advantages to eating healthier. And the flip side, if you're somebody who's more about your own money and trying to save it, you want to help our national debt and help the price of healthcare. It's something ridiculous. The cost of obesity is over $200 billion.
Sure.
You lose that.
Absolutely. That the cardiovascular problem, overweight problem is like half of the expense of healthcare. I mean, once we get past the pandemic, this is going to be in the headlines. Right now, it's all pandemic. But what you're saying is going to be the headlines, in 6 months.
We have to think about the amount of money, and people take it. This is my favorite part. Everyone's all about helping others, and I do things for other people for their safety. Well, if that were true, I'm going to start going around slapping McDonald's out of everybody's hands every time they eat it because it's for my safety and it's my money that you're now affecting because you're raising the cost of healthcare. You're taking rooms in the hospitals and overworking these poor doctors and nurses that are already overwhelmed. Then you're costing more in using more gasoline for flying on a plane or driving a car. It actually adds up to be significant over the course of your lifetime. You're missing more days of work because you're super unhealthy. You're getting sicker more often. Therefore, again, going back to the hospital with other diseases or taking more time off from it because your metabolism isn't working well. Your immune system's down. It's just adds up. And that's why they come up with this $200 billion. And
let me add some guilt to it. For all the Jewish and Catholic listeners here who know what guilt is, 1 pound of beef takes 2,000 gallons of water, takes 8 pounds of grain. 1 pound, 8 pounds of grain, 2,000 gallons of water, and 1 gallon of gasoline to produce. So every pound of beef, you think you're reducing by getting an electric car, every pound of beef you eat is a gallon of gas. So add that to the equation.
Yeah.
I don't mean to everybody, but
a lot to learn from this. I think simplistic for meat eaters out there like myself, kind of going what you said, sticking to the non-factory farm foods and kind of changing. Something I would love to see is more than just cows. Like I love bison meat. It's one of my favorites actually. But the bison market's so low. There's such little demand for it that it's very hard to find. And that's a really lean, healthy meat. And it's all naturally raised. They're not farming them like they are cows. And
Right. I'll give you another example. This is even more ridiculous. Like I would wish. I think if somebody went into the bison meat business really big, like 10 years ago, was it Ted? What's his name? Who was married to Jane Fonda? I can't
know.
the guy who owned CNN and everything. I can't think of the guy's name. He went big into bison meat, but it really didn't catch on. I'll tell you what I would do if I was pushing meat. I don't eat birds either. I stopped eating chicken because I was sick of it. I mean, there's so many problems with chicken. Talk about, hormones and antibiotics and living in filth and everything. I mean, the whole factory chicken industry is worse than the factory cow industry. But what I would do along with the bison thing, you live in Long Island. I live at the Jersey Shore. There's geese all over the place, crapping all over everybody's property. Why don't we start eating geese? People used to eat geese. These are wild geese. They're probably better than eating, farm-raised, factory-raised chickens. But nobody wants to eat a goose. I'm not going to eat one, but I just the same thing with the bison.
Around here they just kind of like hiss at you and attack you. That's what you get.
Yeah, well, get them in the restaurant and feed them to people.
I wanted to start wrapping up and talk a little bit about your book. I want to bring it on up here for those that get to familiarize yourselves with what it looks like, customize yourself nutrition, and what I learned from my 110-year-old mother, who is now 111. Chuck, just kind of give us a synopsis. I know we've talked about in the beginning about this book and how much of an impact it can make in people's lives.
I see it as the reason I wrote it is as an alternative to the diet books and as an alternative to all the things out there that are just completely designed to promote products and services. And I'm not saying there's no good products and services. I'm not saying nobody should ever take any kind of supplement, but there are so many bad ones out there and it is so hard to figure it out. This is the alternative. This is the simple way. Take what you eat now and just today, just eliminate 1 can of soda. And then as you go along, eliminate 2 cookies. And then as you go along, I'll give you a replacement. You're eating too much bread. How about skipping that roll and trying a sweet potato instead? Sweet potatoes are phenomenal. I just learned in the last 2 years that I love sweet potatoes. Now I eat them 4 times a week. I mean, it's just that simple step by step by step. And it's finding things that you like, not somebody tells you to eat. Somebody can say, you should eat a ton of broccoli. Well, I cruciferous vegetables don't digest well with me, but I discovered that kale does. Kale works great. So now I eat lots of kale and I love it. It goes in a salad. It's terrific. Everybody's an individual. You customize yourself. Don't take somebody else's plan. Don't take somebody else's word for it. Just figure it out for yourself. It's really easy if you do it step by step. If you do it all at once, like with a diet, it's really hard. But if you just do it step by step, it's really easy. So I just describe the process and I say, hey, I used to be, an overweight kid, that spent too much time on the couch. Look at me now, I work out with lifeguards on the beach. I'm 69 years old and, I'm looking forward to, working out until I'm my mother's age. Maybe I'll outlive her. Maybe I'll get lucky.
And just a quick little side note. I love these articles, but it was a 103-year-old who just broke the deadlift record for her age. I think she pulled up like 150 pounds. True.
I love that.
Inspiration, man, right there. You're never too old. She said she picked up powerlifting at 85 years old.
That's awesome. See, that's the most inspirational. Somebody walks into your, you get a client who says, look, I'm 45. I really can't do anything. Hey, this woman's 85 and she just got started and look what she's doing. That is the best. That's the best. I love those stories. That's so inspirational. I love it.
And where can people find you, get a hold of you, and where can they find your book?
Easiest thing, go to Amazon, customize yourself, nutrition, you're there. Or you can go to my website, which is also very easy, customizeyourself.org. O-R-G.
Thank you, Chuck. And thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Health and Fitness Redefined. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button and join us next week as we dive deeper into this ever-changing field. And remember, fitness is a journey, not a destination. Until next time.